want to welcome everyone to the RCC and this evening's annual public hearing for programs and budget. This is our chance to share our annual report for the last calendar year with you and to discuss the coming budgets. Tonight, we have a special agenda item of interest to all of you. We will begin the evening with a presentation by the consultants engaged by Fairfax County Department of Public Works and Environmental Services and RCC to explore the program space needs and related costs for a new arts venue in Reston that might be realized because of a proffer from Boston Properties. For their presentation, we ask that you resist the urge to ask questions or make statements until they finish. They handed out index cards. If you need one, they're somewhere around here. And we have quite a few RCC pens that are available for you to use to jot down your questions. You will be recognized at the end of their presentation. So without further ado, please welcome Amy Upton and Sue Haynes from Grimm and Parker.
Thank you. My name is Amy Upton, and I just wanted to thank everyone for having us back. We've had a great spring series of meetings with everyone in this community, and today we're excited to report back what we've heard and how we've used all that information to create the program space needs packet and resulting cost estimate. Tonight, we were planning on sort of summing up everything fairly quickly in about a half hour, and then we'll have time for Q&A as needed. And as Beverly mentioned, at the end, when we get to the Q&A section, if everyone would just line up at the microphone, we'll take the questions one at a time, and we'd love to hear from everyone. So if you have multiple questions, perhaps just ask one first, and we'll see if someone else has asked a similar question. You can come up as often as you want. So without further ado, some of these slides are probably very familiar to some of you. We see a lot of familiar faces in the audience. We just wanted to sum up really quickly that we had a series of 5 engagement meetings. We had some general meetings. We had some focus-specific meetings with performing arts and visual arts and arts education, and a general wrap-up meeting that we sort of reported back what we had heard. And as you know, the timeline, we're in the sort of third zone there where we're in community re-engagement, where we're reporting back to all of you, and we can listen to your questions and hopefully provide some answers. And then the proffer determination will be undertaken by everyone beyond this. So just a reminder that these meetings were conducted to understand all the community's needs and the community in a wider sense, and also in the more immediate sense in the Reston Town Center for a proposed arts venue. And it would be a result of the proffer from Boston Properties in the next phase in Block J, which is highlighted up there along Sunset Hills Road. We were under the assumption that the proffer would provide for an approximately 60,000 gross square feet facility at a maximum to house a stage that's suitable for large-scale music and dance performances and other arts-related amenities. Again, nothing has changed from previous meetings. We still want to make sure that this facility would serve everyone equitably and with high quality, that the county and RCC would maximize the usefulness and activation of all capital projects undertaken on behalf of the public, that RCC would not raise a small District 5 tax rate to accomplish the project, and that the county and RCC would seek partners for funding of the capital project. Again, just a reminder for anyone just to orient you to the site. It's Block J, which is hatched in red on this aerial diagram. It has great location for public transportation access with metro and bus, and for pedestrian access with walking across streets and the W&OD trail, easy access from the toll road and the parkways. So it's a fantastic site plugged into the new town center or proposed town center. And from these land use diagrams, you can see that the Block J is part of a development that is going to have a lot of other different types of amenities about retail. There will be restaurants. There'll be parking associated with certain facilities. There'll be great spaces for green space and outdoor recreation adjacent across the street from Block J, but also just a block over in the town center main drive there. So we've been assessing the site and talking with the civil engineer that we've been working with on this, and we've put together a variety of site assumptions that we believe make sense for this project to be realized, and that includes having the developer provide a pad-ready or ready-to-build Block J site, and so that would include rough grading and soil compaction, also testing to make sure that it's suitable for building, making sure that the sewer, water, gas, electric, and telecom, or utilities connection tie-ins will be in the street for the project, so that the project could conveniently tie in. Making sure that no stormwater management is needed on site. That's a relatively small site, and it's a complex organization there, and so making sure that stormwater management is handled nearby. Having sidewalks and streetscapes, including trees, hardscape, and landscape, that is going to be included. No major geotechnical issues have been identified in any of the early reports, and assuming that also no special foundations will be required. We understand that there's a regular process for zoning that is going to be undertaken, which is not too unique. And it's our assumption that we will not be providing on-site parking, that a shared parking agreement will be part of the proffer. And just like with all projects that need to be realized in Fairfax County, that the county would pursue LEED Gold certification, all-electric building design with the expected energy savings of 50% over ASHRAE baseline. And that just means a very energy-efficient building, and that's in line with the sustainability goals for the county. So we've heard from the community in these past meetings, and also compiled a lot of these goals and considerations from the past outreach that the Master Arts Plan Task Force performed. And we believe that these considerations and goals would help us get to the best outcome for the community. And that includes that the space would be very space efficient. We wouldn't want to compromise quality or excellence. We need to make sure that all moving pieces of accessory and support spaces can be in operation, and that we have other arts amenities throughout the county and the surrounding area, and so we've taken into account what's already available and what's in planning and programming to make sure that we're not trying to just duplicate facilities that are already around. We also heard that we shouldn't compromise technical capabilities for this facility, that we want to make sure that we understand that cost, distance, and transportation are often barriers to participation in arts activities. We want to make sure that we accommodate people regardless of physical or cognitive challenges, and that artists and audiences need to feel very safe, welcome, and supported. And we just want to highlight that because these items don't show up often in a cost estimate. So again, this is just context that has really contributed to the development of the program, so I'm not going to go through all of this. We did cover this in the last meeting, but as you can read here, that we do know that there's fewer amenities for visual arts in the region, and so we needed to make sure that we had a dedicated and flexible gallery space, some professionally equipped staff spaces, make sure that there's affordable rental rates, recording film and digital media studios, affordable storage, all of that. And for the performance arts, I skipped over that, but we knew that that there was the area was lacking a medium capacity performance venue with a large footprint stage, and that we needed to accommodate major types of performances like music, dance, theater for musical and large casts, and also that we're missing small intimate venues for such activities as spoken word, comedy, jazz, and other small groups outside of restaurant and bar venues. So anyway, again, some of these slides are repeat from last time, so we're not going to spend too much time on there. I just wanted to highlight a couple things because Again, we're going to show you some graphic program and sort of test fits that are space planning, and some of these items don't show up on that. We want you to understand that we've heard you and that we do know that there will be the need and the desire for acoustic flexibility without loss of quality for performing arts spaces, technical support, very professional IT, AV, and lighting capabilities, proper humidity control. We know that the space needs to accommodate both rehearsals and instruction and performances, but also broadcast or live stream capabilities. Video is powerful, and broadcast and live stream, as we know from the pandemic, is extremely powerful, and it can help reach people that can't come in person. So for equity, it makes a lot of sense. Also, concessions and hospitality, and then affordable rentals. So you'll see that we have some diagrams about the size of the theater, the size of the stage, but we also want to make sure that you understand that the cost estimate does include other things such as a full fly system, an orchestra pit or thrust, the full cyclorama, the orchestra shell that could be movable and stored on site and brought out, sprung floor, mirrors, ample ceiling height, flexible lighting for the stage and also rehearsal dance space, lobby with box office and concessions. And then it will have all the associated support spaces that you can see listed here, including wardrobe and scenery repair, dressing rooms, grand piano and piano storage, production office and tech space, control booth, catering kitchen, production office, loading. And we understand that an outdoor space is desired, but environmental noise could inhibit usefulness for events. I mean, that's just something that needs to be worked out if this project moves forward and a design team is contracted to work on the actual design of the project. We also understand that sensory-friendly spaces and streaming capabilities are vital, and flexible use of space can result in a higher level of activation. And in terms of visual arts, we understand exhibit space is very important in addition to the creation of 2D and 3D artwork, and also the functionality for rentals, for social functions, and acknowledging the need for immersive and conceptual art, as well as arts education. And so as a result, we're looking at general and open studios for a variety of arts, but also a dedicated artisan studio, a gallery with professional flexible hanging display infrastructure and flexible display pedestals and lighting and all those needs, and then accessory spaces for display and exhibit like walls and storage, etc. Storage, kiln, drying rooms, all of that would be included. And of course, all the necessary restrooms, loading, and reception has been taken into account. And then for the shared spaces, we'd have circulation, rentals, technical and utility spaces, catering, kitchen, administrative offices, the associated storage, security, loading, utility, mechanical. And one space that really came out of these discussions, which has been just very helpful, has been the talk about a digital media studio, and with the goal of having like a primary space, such as a classroom size space that could have a projector and filming studio space and a computer room that can accommodate computers, and also some support spaces for storage of production equipment and audio recording space if possible. But the goal here would be to live stream and broadcast performances and events, to record, to edit digital media suite and equipment, to create video and game and graphics and animation, and to provide instruction for the community in these areas. So we know that video is the future of communication, and this can reduce the digital divide and provide equitable access to all arts for all ages. And it can absolutely strengthen partnerships with local public schools and colleges and universities, and it's a great way for outreach. And then we've talked a lot at pretty much every meeting about public art, and everyone's in support of public art. It could be inside, it could be outside. We'd love it to be integrated with the design and construction of the facility. The design or the plan for the process of public art is not part of this scope, so it's just something that we know is definitely going to be in the program for the future, but it's not really showing up currently in the space planning. It would be something that would be layered into the design of the facility once a proffer negotiation would happen and the project would move forward. So I'm going to hand it over to Sue, who's going to walk you through the actual program spaces and some of the square footages that we've identified.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Sue Haynes with Grimm & Parker. I'm going to walk you through what we did after we listened to all of the breakdown of what Amy described. So we took everything that you said and we made what's called a space program. We created net square footage of rooms that would work towards the goals that you're looking for. And this is an overall breakdown of a gross square footage of how it all divided out. And the goal was to, get the best of everything that we could get within 60,000 square feet. This says 65. That's a gross square footage. That's based on a multiplier that, depending on how efficient the layout turns out, it could be 60 or it could be 65. So these color codes are the types of spaces that and how they're broken out. Does that thingy go here? So this is a big sort of overall diagram of the graphic program. The blue is the performance space. The purple is the backstage spaces. The orange is admin. The gray is support. The tan color is rehearsal, dance, and digital arts. And the visual art spaces are green, and the lobby is yellow. And this is just an overall diagram. The shapes of the rooms aren't exactly what they'll be when you lay them out in a drawing. They're just proportional kind of rectangles. The shape of the performance venue, obviously the stage is probably going to be a rectangle, but the seating arrangement for the actual house could be a different shape when it gets eventually designed in the next go-around. This is just a diagram of a house shape and layout. And the goal is to take all these pieces, put them on the site that we have, and see how well they fit, and see how well they fit with a lot of other issues, with, pedestrian entry, vehicle entry, drop-off, visibility, how they all work together and how they're adjacent to each other. So it's not a total piece of cake. You got to kind of make it all work together. So we're going to jump and sort of explain each one quickly. This is the stage. I think it's 45 feet by 85 feet. The little dotted line area is the play area. This is the rigging zone. And then to the right is the actual house. There's a small pit shown. It's not a full pit. It's just a partial pit that would go, you'll see it in the section, that would go below the house seating. The house performance space itself has about 372 seats on the orchestra level and 165 on the first balcony. Obviously, when it gets designed, all that could just change depending on how the next reiteration goes. There's sound and light locks. There are the little blue boxes on top, and that's how you get into the theater, so you can actually get in without disrupting the lobby. The next diagram is just a little test fit that we did to see how many people would fit on the stage depending on the scenario, because I know there's been a lot of concern about how many people can fit and how big the stage is. So I don't know if you can see the diagram very well, but in the first upper left one, there's an orchestra of about 40 people and a chorus of 125 behind them. There's a kind of generic shell shown. I assume you guys kind of, that's facing out towards the house. So that's one setup without using the pit. The second setup on the right would be putting the orchestra in the pit, and there's about 29 people there, and that has a full chorus on stage with about 200 people. Obviously, there'd be steps and risers and all that's not really shown. And the bottom diagram has a larger orchestra of 83 people and a chorus of about 120. So that gives you an idea of the scale of the stage, and obviously that was a big part of a lot of discussions that we had. So moving on to some of the other spaces, the rehearsal studio space, the big space on the upper left, is really a space that wants to be on the ground floor next to the stage so it can share and get direct load in. So it really wants to be on the ground floor for functionality of the building. There's a recording studio, post-production studio, and that's all the tan-colored spaces. The green spaces are the gallery, which also really wants to be on the first floor for visibility, and the other spaces could be on upper floors. There's a shared classroom, open studio, and a ceramics-specific studio. The yellow spaces are the lobbies, the orchestra lobby and the balcony lobby, and the grand stairs and concessions and things like that. And moving more quickly, the backstage support area, there's a loading area. We really tried to get any kind of tractor trailer off the street so it wasn't in the middle of any congestion for traffic. So that's what's accommodated in that largest purple rectangle. Dressing rooms, scenery. There's a small scenery repair shop, a small costume repair shop, a green room, and a warming catering kitchen, and then some other smaller dressing rooms. The orange is the admin area, and there really is minimal admin. If anything, it's really going to be more of a flexible space with a couple desks and a couple offices, and it could even be converted to be used in other ways. That's kind of how we ended up translating the admin, because the thought was there was other places for admin to be done around Reston that didn't have to be in this building. The building support is really just mechanical, electrical, and all those spaces that are required. We thought we'd touch on a couple things that really didn't make it into the right sizing of the theater and the site. The house size that we're going to show you is 500 seats. It seemed to work the best, and it does fit on the site. We will show you some examples of trying to fit larger houses and the struggles that really came about with that real quick. We didn't include individual artist studios. They didn't seem to shake out in the program. Culinary arts studio didn't have enough interest. And there's other programs nearby that seem to take care of that. We don't have individual small practice rooms in this program. We got rid of the small conference room in the admin area and decided that conferences could happen elsewhere. There's no parking, like Amy said at the beginning, because we're going to assume that other sites nearby can accommodate parking. And the vehicular, and that's the patron drop-off, is going to happen curbside on the street. And we don't have long-term prop and costume storage. So moving on. So, let me back up for a sec. So now we take all that and we try to put it on the site in the right arrangement with all the pieces next to the right other pieces. We're first going to show you a test fit of 700 square foot house and show you, 700 seats in the house, and show you the struggles with that. So taking those same colors that you saw earlier, I know we've seen these drawings a lot, so you guys can ask questions at the end. The blue is the theater, that's the stage, that's the house. And you can see what starts to happen on the site is there's a length of the theater. And yes, you can make it wider and fan it out, but you still need a certain length to really make it work. There's a certain length to it that struggles to fit on this site properly with the other components serving it in the right location. The delivery and support really wants to happen down on this corner of the site. And you can see that the bubbles of square footage kind of don't really fit enough. You can't get past the theater here, for example, to serve the back of house with the front of house. So, and then we tried different arrangements. We twisted it around, and we tried different ways. And we really didn't want to put the rehearsal studio or the gallery upstairs. So that was another thing that we really thought was important. In this one on the right, you can see that the rehearsal studio doesn't even fit, and it's kind of probably would have to go upstairs. But what these diagrams don't show is these are the net square footage spaces. So there's gross space there's structure, columns, there's mechanical HVAC, and there's all that stuff. There's, elevators, and there's a little bit of stairs indicating in some of these diagrams. But there's more that has to happen, and if the bubbles are tight and they don't fit, it's never going to work. So I want to kind of preface that. And then there's 2 more options where we turned it different ways to see which might work better. So moving on to the schemes that we felt were more successful, we took the program, the original program with the 500-seat venue of the house, and we worked out some schemes that worked well. And we took the best of those and gave it to our cost estimator to price. This is a diagram version of it. It doesn't show every single little piece of it, but it shows the diagrams of the program spaces in their positions. It doesn't show every single little stair and everything, but we did work all that out to the point where we felt like it was feasible. And basically, it's a test fit, and that's exactly what we did. So can you see there's a second floor plans here, if that's easy to read. There's a small basement that has a lot of the service and some of the back of house stuff down there. And then there's 3rd floor with the fire stairs. Up in the 2nd floor is the digital arts and the, I can't read the other, and the visual arts, which comes off of the balcony lobby and kind of creates a little nice space there. So this would give the gallery like a street view along with the pedestrians. A rehearsal studio would be on the flat. It could be served from a loading dock back here all the way out to this studio space. If they wanted to rent, they could open this all up and this up and create a little rentable space here. So we felt like, the great news is the program fits on the site. And that's really the question we were told to answer. Am I missing anything, Amy? This is a quick little diagram of the section of what it might look like. That's the pit that I was explaining, how it only goes about 4 feet down. And that's orchestra, balcony, stage. Obviously, there's a fly and all this stuff in here we didn't show in this diagram. Back of house and building support. This diagram on the upper left, before you get really freaked out about it, it's the maximum height shown in the site diagram that we got from Boston Properties. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to build those buildings like that. It's literally what the zoning allows. And we asked them if they had any more information on the actual heights of what they're planning, and they said they didn't have anything more. So we're Block J, we're the yellow block right there, and that's how it would look from the other side. Let's see. Cost estimate. So, sorry. So when we did that whole test fit, it actually ended up at 57,000 square feet, which was terrific because the gross multiplier on the net spaces was more like 65. So we felt like we had an efficient layout, which was good. So we used that. We gave that to a professional cost estimator, and he did a really pretty detailed cost estimate. We ran through it. We made sure everything was in there. So what he does is he estimates what's called the hard costs, and that's the construction cost of the building. That's the building, walls and roof and ceiling. So that's the $38,700 million number. Soft costs are the other things that go into a building. The way they describe it in the world of architecture, if you took the building and you shook it upside down, the soft costs would come out. So that's the furniture, the drapes, the TVs, like all those like furniture, fixtures, and equipment, they call it. There's a lot in these kind of buildings because you have to rig it out. You have to have performance lights. They're expensive. You have to have AV equipment. That's expensive. So hard costs plus soft costs is the 54. And that also includes other things like AE fees, any, other soft costs related, permit fees, stuff that gets added onto a project. So those these three numbers right here are in today's dollars. And there's a contingency on top of the 54 million that gets you up to 58. Now you take today's dollars and you try to estimate it forward into when the project might happen. Now, everyone knows construction and escalation's been crazy lately, right? So our professional cost estimators did what they're professionally trained to do and used the numbers, and we have all the backup on what percentages they used for escalation. And they escalated it to a variety of dates, actually. We just posted to you the spring 2030 with the hard costs and soft costs at 76, and then with more contingency on top at 81. You know, life's been tricky lately, building buildings, and you know, who knows what's going to happen. So that's, I think that's the summary of the cost estimate. We gave that to RCC and DPW, and they helped with the whole development of the soft cost. They checked the contingency, and we all kind of agreed on the numbers. And that's the end of our presentation. I don't know if I'm sure I missed a lot of things. You guys can ask questions. And the next step, and Lila and Eileen might talk about it, the next step is to really decide to go forward with the proffer with Boston Properties and to decide and negotiate with them what's going to happen. And that's kind of where things are going to go from here. We're not going to really be a part of that at Grimm & Parker, but we did the test fit to show that the site is feasible. And I guess that's it. So I guess we can open up for questions.
So if you would just take your place in line if you have questions, and use the microphone, because like all of the meetings, we are recording this, and the sound feed goes from the mic through the board to the camera. So the questions can be heard on the videotape record of the meeting. So if you wouldn't mind doing that for us, we'd greatly appreciate it. And if you would just take turns on your first question until we've gone through everybody's first question, and then if you have follow-up, we'll go through the follow-up. Oh, come on.
There's no way I covered everything. There's no way.
Hi, I'm Deborah Stapel, and I have a question about the parking. Can you give a little bit more detail on who are the other nearby lots, and what are those organizations, and what would that feel like in a practical sense for both the performers and as well as the audience members in the performing arts venue? Thank you.
So I'm going to take that because the short answer to that question is nobody knows.
Yep.
You can imagine a shared parking agreement that's similar to the shared parking agreements that govern the existing town center. All of those parking garages feed all of the enterprises and restaurants and office buildings in town center. It's up to each individual car parker to figure out where they want to park. We definitely wanted a dance, dressing, big room, dividable room available on site on that first floor, so that the whole cast of whatever it is could be dropped off and then stay put on the site for a very large scale performance that we hoped would eliminate a lot of single occupant vehicle parking requirements or that search for parking around a rehearsal or a performance event.
Susan Meeks-Fairsteig with the Reston Corral. Can you go back to the slide that showed the cross-section of the auditorium? Yeah. So you've explored going outward to expand it. Did you explore raising the roof and adding a second balcony?
Yeah, yes. You could do that too. The second balcony would ideally be behind this balcony, but it could be on top of the balcony too. And it would raise up the whole roof there.
So that would give us another 165 seats.
Yeah, and every time you raise the house size, everything gets proportionally bigger, you know? Like the bathrooms and the lobby should proportionally get bigger. And I think that's, I think the reality of the house size is really going to come into play when someone digs into the true schematic design. Because this theater that we showed, it's 500, it's probably really 530, because there's like safety factors in there, 550. Could you max it out and add a bunch of seats and get close to 600? Probably, but I'm not going to say that because there's no structure in the drawings and there's no mechanical chases. So I think there's a lot of fine tuning that has to happen. And if you had a second balcony, then you would need the stairs to go up, the elevator to go up, another lobby of some sort, and maybe a bathroom, but maybe not. You don't have to have a bathroom. So you're right. It's possible. You could look into that if that is a priority. It also would, if we're stuck with the 60,000 square foot, we'd have to kind of shift square footage around to make it work, to add that square footage.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm used to being on that side rather than this side, but it's been a long time. I'm just curious, when you were talking about the number of singers on the stage, were you considering them on risers with
Yes.
chairs?
Yes, yes, yes.
Perhaps not all on chairs, Ruth, and for the record, that was Ruth Overton, masked as she is. Perhaps not entirely seated, but some standing, some seated. It depends on the number of singers and the number of orchestra pieces.
Hi, Linda Platt. You said that there'd be, I'm new to the process. I haven't been to your previous meetings. I apologize. But you said there'd be no increased tax on Reston residents to accomplish the project. Does that refer to operating costs as well after it's built?
No one knows about the operation of this venue yet. This is really a step-by-step iterative process. We know for a fact that Reston Small District 5 taxpayers are not going to shoulder the entire burden of this venue or its operation. Some shared cost is anticipated and multiple funding streams are anticipated. How that shakes out in the final analysis is way far down the road.
Okay, thank you.
Bob Petrine, 2503 Foxcroft Way.
You can
Oh,
adjust
sure.
that. No, see the squeeze handle? That's right. There you go.
Thank you. A rookie on these. I have a more practical question. I've read the governing documents. I don't see that there's a referendum required of members to go forward with this, so I would assume this project is a go.
No, I wouldn't assume anything at this point. You can assume that the proffer exists and that Fairfax County government has to make a determination whether it will accept the proffer or not. And it's up to now Supervisor Alcorn's office and county staff to negotiate terms of that proffer. And after that, we'll know much more about how this might be realized if the determination is made to accept the performing arts venue plus arts spaces at proffer.
Anybody next? Oh, I have a couple other questions. I'll just jump in if you don't mind. Who's going to determine the features that are going to be sustainable over time? These are a lot of different things that may have a very short shelf life. And in $1930, you're going to spend $80 million. That's a lot of money. So
In $1930?
2030.
No,
He
no,
means 2030.
excuse me.
Gonna say,
I
I'd
got
love-
you.
I wish it was
I'd love to have
$1930.
$1930 to spend on this.
Well, we can inflate them.
There you go, there you go. You know, Robert, that's just an incredibly difficult question to answer, because what we've done is reflect the community's priorities in these program spaces. We also know, based on the operation of our existing venues and the research that's been done for the Master Arts Plan for facilities, that there is demand that is yet to be met by existing county amenities. So when we get down to the nitty-gritty of the design process, if the determination is made to go through with the proffer, then the county will have a whole new round of engagement and design conversation before a design is finalized.
One last question. How do you see this space and the Lake Ann space fitting in with the overall concept?
So that's a great question, and one of the things that the Master Arts Plan process has taken into consideration is on a county-wide basis and in a, sort of micro and macro communities kind of perspective, what are the venues that are available to serve the needs of the public from an arts perspective? And it would never be RCC's goal or any other venue operator's goal to cannibalize each other's forte or audiences. The goals would be to realize the kinds of programming and space programming that complements both current, planned, and possible future space. So we turn away people already. We get at least 3 or 4 or 5 rental requests a week in the high season that we can't address because this room is booked and the center stage is booked. We know there's a black box venue being planned for the town of Herndon that is fairly far along in that process. We know that Cap One has a multi-decade proffer arrangement with Fairfax County that the county is very invested in seeing successful. So we take into account all those factors because Tyson's, Herndon, Reston form a kind of arts region that we want to see be a very successful enterprise for all the different groups involved.
Thank you.
Yep.
My name's Catherine Julie Ward. Can you give a quick rundown of, again, what Lila was just saying, about all the various venues that are available right within a 10-mile radius, including Cap One, Wolf Trap, particularly Wolf Trap Barns. I don't know how much the capacity here is. I'd like to have an idea because it seems to me 500 is very small.
So right now, within this region, currently operating is the Barns. That's a bit more than 500, but right around 500 seats. The center stage is 260 seats. The community room can accommodate, depending on how many people are performing, another 200 to 250 people. The venue planned for Herndon will have 18,000 square feet and a black box space in it. Typically, black box spaces serve about 100 to 200 seats, depending on the configuration. They also plan to have a visual arts component to that facility. In Tyson's, Cap One has the main hall. Cap One Hall has 16 square feet. Now I'm doing it. 1,600 seats. The house can be handled in such a way that you can decrease the sort of psychological perception of all those seats down to about 800 seats. It has a space called the Vault that's another flexible space that seats about 250, the maximum seating footprint in the Vault, but it is very much a black box kind of space. Wolf Trap's Filene Center, of course, is a seasonal operation. That's a massive house. I don't know what the house plus the lawn, it's over 2,000 people that can be accommodated there. There are small and there are many non-arts dedicated spaces throughout this area. There are many churches that are used by particularly choral ensembles that have the kind of acoustical environment that's desired, but not superb seating accommodations, shall we say. There are also, there's the Alden Theater in McLean that has, I think, 400 and some seats in it. It's a theater, a little bit bigger size stage than this stage, but roughly similar. There is a stage and sort of rudimentary performing space in the Vienna Community Center. Of course, much farther afield and not really germane to the audience in that 10-mile, 5 miles is really the radius you want to look at, and that's pretty much it in a 5-mile radius. But beyond that, of course, there's George Mason Center for the Arts, there's the Schlesinger complex in Alexandria, there's the Annandale campus of Northern Virginia Community College has a theater venue and a gallery in it. There are, the George Mason complex has 2 theaters, the Center for the Arts and the Harris Theater. There are small venues in Falls Church and in the city of Fairfax. There are 2 major venues in the South County. There's the Workhouse Arts Foundation at the Workhouse campus in Lorton, and there's also original Mount Vernon High School, which is being renovated, and that is also anticipated to be a community-serving performing arts venue with related spaces. I'm looking in my head at this table that I should have memorized, but there are a lot.
Seems like there are enough. We don't need any more.
Well, that's not actually the case based on the market research and the needs analysis that was done in 2018 and 2019. There is still more demand. Think about it in terms of schools, police stations, fire stations. We don't set those out in increments of 10 and 15-mile radiuses because people need them to be close to where they are, and art is a similar necessity.
Good evening, Marcia Kesterbaum McDevitt, 1587 Inlet Court. I worked very hard to get this community center built. I designed the original kitchen so it could be a classroom. And to do that, as a home economist, I made an agreement that I would never ask to teach here for money. That was part of the trade. Now, I know that everybody wants venues on the weekend. And that is what we try to build for. But it is very unrealistic when we are black for a great deal of the time. I question that. I have traveled all up and down the East Coast helping in theaters. I even worked for Kennedy Center for a while. This center and the one at Lake Ann is highly unutilized, and it's not just because COVID. It was highly unutilized before that. I am very disappointed in that. I don't know what to do to fix it, to get people to come here instead of going other places. But I'm very concerned at having another center that doesn't have high utilization. Thank you.
Well, Marcia, thank you for all the work you did to realize this venue, and I would just counter that with the fact that it is a highly used theater and a highly used community
I
room.
don't see that.
Well,
And I have stayed out of this for a number of years. Vicki knows that. I had a very sick husband, and I am staying out of it now. I am just registering my feelings on
Sure.
this.
Oh, okay.
Hi, my name's David Wiley, and I just found out about this initiative, I think, from a neighborhood newsletter that went around. So I'm fairly ignorant, and I learned a lot. Thank you about that. I would just say one of the things that was a concern on our street was property assessments went up in general. Mine personally went up 28%. So I actually consider myself lucky, which means I didn't pay that 28% for the last 5 years, but it caught up to me, right? And so, you know, you have a goal of not raising your tax rate. You know, the common refrain was, well, you know, Fairfax was trying to trim it so that there wasn't, you know, the bonus money that came in because of the arithmetic, the way the arithmetic works. So I would balance, you know, that good fortune against, you know, I consider myself fortunate because I've done the math, I can probably afford it, I'm still working, but I'm not the representative person for all the income levels that you have to think about. So that's one sort of financial thing. When does the proffer have to be agreed to by Fairfax?
Pretty soon. The date on it is July 27th of this year. I would imagine there's some give to that, and that Supervisor Alcorn's office and the county planning and development folks will be able to navigate that a little bit either way, but I would be pretty confident that this year we'll know whether this proffer is going to be pursued in this fashion.
You know, in sort of my calendar, that's like tomorrow, right? Mm-hmm. July. And I thought it was an excellent sort of architectural study for feasibility, but, you know, given my last statement, it was running through my mind was what was the financial feasibility? And you have a lot of unknowns. Mm-hmm. And, you know, businessmen are always great negotiators. Businessmen and women are good negotiators. So I think that's something you can push against. But I really got to see. I don't see the homework on the financial side in terms of sort of nailing down how this is financially feasible. The way that I see, you know, because my other window is Reston Association trying to fund amenities and the struggle they go through with a lot of work on staff to get that done. So that's a big corner to turn in 45 days.
Well, fortunately, it's Fairfax County government's corner to turn, and Supervisor Alcorn
okay,
and
so those
county
other guys
staff
are going to solve the problem. Okay, good. That's
well,
fine.
they'll solve it or they won't solve
Yeah,
it,
that's-
but it's not RCC's problem to solve
Okay,
tonight.
all right. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, well, had an interesting light show here tonight. Okay,
one more question. If is the proffer strictly for an art center, or does the proffer have a range?
The proffer is pretty detailed. It's for an art center or some kind of recreational component, perhaps fields or some other component. But I think that would all have to get worked out between Walter's office and the county staff and Boston Properties. Okay, so we're going to excuse our good friends from Grimm and Parker. All of their presentation materials will get loaded up on the project website, which I hope you all know how to access. We are going to go through our annual public hearing for programs and budget, which is germane to any of you who are Reston Small District 5 residents and taxpayers, so I hope you'll stay for that. And we'll give a little bio break and be back here in about 2 minutes with those who are interested in our annual public hearing information.